Heyo, and welcome back to Vanquish. We're now moving into Act 5, which, if you can't tell by the name of the mission, Denouement, this is the final act of the game.
I'm orbiting nearby, in case you need me.
Good. Don't go anywhere.
So yeah, like, the word denouement typically sort of refers to like the conclusion, usually after the climax of a particular tale, at least some of my recollection on how words work. But like, we do still have quite a lot of excitement left to go in Act 5, so take that how you will.
Everyone out?
It is rather strange.
Well, I'm gonna worry about the devils we know. The RIs from here on out aren't gonna give us a free ride.
You're right.
But yeah, what's going to be happening in the denouement mission is we are going to be attacked by a literal fuck ton of enemies here. Like, this mission in itself is basically like the big last firefight before, you know, we go back to plot stuff. So you got all the different things, you got these fucking, what you call them, die one of you. The gorges. I was just waiting for the text to come up on the right so I can remember what the fucking things I've been shooting all game are called. Like, I'm not good at like this whole paying attention lark. But yeah, we got the gorges, we've got them guys. We've also got some Romanovs who are going to have to fight, and naturally you can see from the health bar the big guy that we've got to take down is the buzzard, that guy who's sort of perched on that roof over there. But I don't think we can really do that much to him until we've got some of the other shit out of the way, so yeah. Or I say that, but I can take him down with a turret, that works too. Maybe I should get better at, you know, pre-screening the footage before I go into talking over it, but you know, we're on the tail end of a playthrough. It's been going on for quite a while as it is, mainly because I got ill, so I'm not too fussed about going a bit more casual in this one. Like, I've been doing that this whole playthrough really, but you know, we're near the end, let's just fight a load of guys. But yeah, like, I think what the game was baiting you to do at the very least was to take out all these guys here and then start fighting off the buzzard, but I used my initiative there and I went for the turrets. But that is the sort of thing where, like, it's your decision on how you approach the situation, because I would imagine for a lot of people it would be easier to get rid of a lot of guys who were loitering out the front. Like, maybe they'd feel a bit more confident about taking on the big guy without having all the others shooting at you the whole time. But for me, like, I just went straight into the little booth that looked like the way to progress and took it upon myself to fight off the guy who seemed like the most immediate threat there. And that's just one of the things that it comes down to, how you, like, strategically take things on in games in general. Like, it's one of the things that, depending on the kind of game, you might have things that work differently. Because, like, if you're playing a game where there's lots of things firing at you here, then you might kind of wager which one is going to do the most damage and get rid of him, and then you can worry about the less threatening ones. And that's because this is like an action game, so like everything is moving, everything is going. You can't really have a moment to stop and think, so you need to just get on with killing something, and usually it's the big guy who stands right out, at least for me. Like, granted, like I said a minute ago, like, different people are going to play these games differently. Whereas, say if it's like, maybe, I don't know, like an RPG where there's multiple guys out on screen, you know, like, think double battles in Pokemon, or think, you know, where there's like your party against the enemy's party, because then if it's turn-based, and you can kind of think more strategically, and you can think like, okay, if I get rid of that guy and I'll get rid of that guy, then I can worry more about taking on the big one once I haven't got the distractions, or maybe I can get my whole party attacking the big guy once the little ones aren't an issue anymore. Or, depending on some RPGs, if there's more kind of complex things that you're meant to do in the battle. Like, one thing that always comes back to me is Pokemon Colosseum and XD, where all the battles are double battles, and if you were trying to snag a Shadow Pokemon, you would have to use your brain a little bit about how you can get rid of the other enemy Pokemon, like the Cypher Grunt or whoever's like other Pokemon that you're not trying to snag, and get them out of the way before you can focus on whittling down the health of the one that you are trying to snag. And that was particularly important in some battles. Like, I particularly remember the Dakin battle from Pokemon Colosseum, where his Shadow was an Entei, so a fire type, and basically all his other Pokemon that he'd throw out would spam the fuck out of Earthquake. So you needed to preserve that Entei by getting rid of all the Earthquake Pokemon, just because they would kill it one hit if they got a stray Earthquake out. Yeah, I do like Colosseum and XD, although they are quite difficult to get through sometimes, because like they're very slow compared to a lot of RPGs, at least from what I've played. And the whole snagging mechanic, if it works for you, then it's fine. But if you're having a bit of grief with trying to snag a particular Shadow Pokemon, yeah, it's gonna get pretty tedious pretty quick. And yeah, I did just dash quickly through the lasers rather than letting it pass, because, you know, you gotta live life on the edge sometimes. And there's a Pangloss statue that's quite subtly tucked away. I think I maybe got like 2 in this playthrough. I wasn't really going out my way to look for them, so yeah, it wasn't a priority here. I was worried more about not dying and just generally looking cool, which the amount of times I've just gone sliding into a wall or some shit, I've kind of shot that in the foot as well. I'm not very good at the looking cool part in games either, really, unless it's like a retro thing where I've got save states and I can, you know, spend hours on hours just getting perfect no-hit runs down, because that's what my life revolves around now. I don't know, like, it's the end of the playthrough. I'm fucking around now, if you can't tell. But yeah, given this is kind of the tail end of the game, and I really don't have that much more commentary to give, like blow by blow for the game, I thought I would go through the other Platinum games and see if there's that many that I can actually say anything about, because Platinum's one of them companies that I have a lot of respect for what they do. They're, in terms of action games in particular, like I can tell there's a lot of love put into these games, and there's just like a lot of thought put into perfecting them, but I haven't really got as much experience with them as I probably should. Like, I should go out of my way to play a lot more Platinum stuff, because I see a lot of these games and I think they look cool and I want to play them, but I just haven't really got around to it. But yeah, the games Platinum have worked on, first one, the earliest one on their Wikipedia list is MadWorld, which that's the like uber violent like game where it's in like black and white with just the occasional red for blood. Like, that is the entire art style of that game. I haven't played it. I actually have it. I picked up for like maybe £2 in a second-hand shop a while ago. I'll get around to it eventually. What I remember about MadWorld is I think one of the like British newspaper publications got really worked up about that because of like how overly violent it is, and the fact that it is a Wii game as well, and like the Wii hadn't been out long and it had got this sort of family friendly image, and so having this uber violent game where you chainsawing people's heads off and shit on this game system that people associate with kids, like that gave, I think it was the Sun, if I recall correctly, I think it was the Sun who sort of freaked out over that. But yeah, that's what I remember of MadWorld. Next up, Infinite Space, I know nothing about, other than it's a DS game. Bayonetta? I've mentioned Bayonetta a few times in this playthrough, I'll keep it brief. Looks cool, got some cool ideas, not really my thing. Apparently the sequel's better. Like, Stephen's been bugging me to play Bayonetta 2, because apparently that's a much better game than the first Bayonetta. And maybe I will take his word for it and give it a shot soon. We'll see, but yeah. Next up, Vanquish, obviously. After that, Anarchy Reigns from 2012. Another game I know nothing about. That's a PS3 and Xbox 360 game. Next is The Wonderful 101. I've seen gameplay of that. Doesn't really look like my thing, honestly. Like, I can see why people like it. There's, you know, the management elements of it, at least from what I've seen. But it doesn't really appeal to me, honestly. Metal Gear Rising with Vengeance, something else I've mentioned in the playthrough so far. Looks good, but I'm not good at it, basically. Legend of Korra. I've never watched the series that that's based on, so I have no real stock in that. I watched a bit of gameplay from this, so I remember watching the Gaming Brit stream it a while back. It doesn't look all that fun. It looks pretty bland, and I've heard like fans of the show say that the game's a bit bland. Like that seems like one of them B team kind of deals. After that, Bayonetta 2, I've already said. Then Transformers Devastation. Apparently that's a much better licensed adaptation than Korra was. Like, that's heavily based on Bayonetta in terms of its gameplay style. It's got the whole Witch Time equivalent and that sort of combat. So, yeah, pretty cool. Seems like a short game, but, you know, I know a lot of people like Devastation, so that's cool. 8-bit Bayonetta. Oh, that was a little gimmicky game they put out on Steam when they were sort of teasing the PC port of Bayonetta, the original one on Steam. So yeah, that's like a little gimmicky side-scroller game.
I think we're clear.
Rendezvous in front of the
In Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutants in Manhattan, apparently that's crap. But I haven't played it. I've barely seen any gameplay from it. I believe it had a frame rate cap, and that was one of the big problems as well, because, you know, playing an action game at 30, not ideal. Star Fox Zero. Apparently that's like heavily based on Star Fox 64, but with full steam motion controls, so lovely, I guess. And then there was that Star Fox Guard thing that came with it. And the other one that's actually released so far is Nier Automata, which I've heard a lot of good things about. And I might give that a shot at some point. Like, I know it's on PC, and I might pick it up when I've got not much else to play at a particular time. Now I'm seeing other things on here which I take are upcoming, which Lost Order, Android and iOS, that's on. I don't know anything about that. And same with Grand Blue Fantasy Project Relink on PS4, that's upcoming. I don't know anything about that either. And of course there's the little footnote on the page of Scalebound. May it rest in peace. Like, I think of the Scalebound thing, like, that was Microsoft who sort of screwed that over. It was them who had commissioned it as a Xbox One exclusive, or like one of them Xbox One and Windows 10 exclusive things, but that got cancelled. The footage that I saw of Scalebound, I believe it was a trailer at E3, didn't look amazing to me. But also I know there were a lot of people who were really looking forward to that game, so it's kind of a dick move, and especially when you consider that having a high profile game like that cancelled is probably quite a big hit to a development studio like Platinum. So it's really is a dick move that Microsoft just cut it for whatever reason. Like, Microsoft have a bit of a reputation as it is, but having another thing to sort of be a black mark against them, not great. And it's weird kind of thinking about it that, like, I don't have an Xbox One, and this is probably the first time in a very long time that there's been a console on the market that I've had no interest in getting. Like, all I can think of that I would probably play if I were to get an Xbox One would be the Master Chief Collection, which are fucking remasters of Xbox 360 games, so like, I'm in no big rush for that. Like, it just amazes me, as someone who likes to stay on top of video games and likes to keep my eye on things, it's a weird feeling to give literally no shits about a console. Like, granted, I do play a lot more games on PC now than I ever did before. Now I've got a good PC that can run stuff, you know, well. But still, like, Microsoft have no exclusives to entice me to it. And, like, the hardware in itself, like, all I can really think of
to work.
now is if I were to get that and play like Master Chief Collection or something, like I'd have to pay out for another fucking subscription on top of it. Like Renew Xbox Live, which I stopped paying for a long time ago, and it's just really not appealing when there's all these costs that add up.
Elena, what happened to the map?
Interference is too heavy. I can't transmit the data.
Sam, where are you?
In front of the control room. Where the hell are you?
I got myself into a little ambush.
I've got a feeling Burns might be bluffing here. We saw with him talking to Winters toward the end of the last act
These men and go back.
that maybe something's going on that's a little bit funky.
I'll handle it. Your CO is in the shit. Go fish him out. Now.
Hoorah!
But yes, now we're moving on to the soldier mission, and shit's about to go down.
Professor Candide,
Sam, where are the Marines?
I'm alone, Frank.
Stay back! I've told you we can't trust the Commander-in-Chief. Why are you working with the military?
Frank.
Thank God. I stopped it in time.
Shit. Now, I'm a sucker for slow motion bullets, and this scene is really cool. Like, even if it does expose Burns as being a complete fucking twat, but still.
This fight is for the men going home and buying boxes now. I'm changing the microwave's target to Moscow.
Why would the president order this?
Consider it a kind of economic stimulus package.
What? War is not economic stimulus. San Francisco is gone now.
That was for the good of all Americans.
The target can't be reset with this panel, Burns.
You think I don't know that? Besides, I was gonna retarget this thing the old-fashioned way. Manually.
And you expect me
The
to...
delivery of that manually line seems so false, I'm sorry.
Well, you're on a battlefield now, Sammy boy. Let's see you fight for what you believe in.
So, I think it was getting more and more obvious over time that we would eventually end up fighting Burns. Like, there was a bit of a tease of maybe, you know, there'd be that bit of character development where Burns would stop being a prick, but ultimately, no, he's still a prick. And what makes this section feel kind of dark to a certain degree, like as a kind of mood clash, is so far we've just been fighting robots, all the Russian mechs, which look a bit goofy, feel a bit goofy, and there's kind of no humanity to them. Whereas now we're in a position where we're fighting off the soldiers that we were working with. So we've got our own teammates turning against us at Burns' orders. But they also go down just as easily as the mechs did. And that's one of the things where, from a gameplay perspective, this is like the same thing. Like, just instead of like fighting off the Gulgies, we're now just fighting off the soldiers. But it kind of, if you think about it a certain way, it's showing just how vulnerable life can actually be. The fact that we can just blast these down and make them bleed the same way that we just shot down the robots. And I guess that's actually quite impactful to a certain degree, like, because like gameplay wise, the chasing down Burns scene, it's more difficult than some of the stuff in the game, but it's really not that much. But to now be taking down our old squaddies, there's that bit more of a plot element to it that makes it engaging rather than being another fight all the dudes sequence. But I seem to recall having a bit of trouble with this because, like, they jump up, they've got their weird jetpack things that they conveniently weren't using when they were teamed up with us. Or, you know, always the way, you know. But, yeah, I think I'll reset maybe a couple of times just to get this down. Like, there will be some edits as well throughout the sequence, if I recall correctly. So, you get to see a bit of scrub claw coming on. And of course I would be having an easier time if I wasn't letting myself overheat and take too much damage in one hit.
Shit.
And now for a redux of the train sequence, because we need another one of them. And I don't think it's explicitly done as a throwback, but the gameplay principle is essentially the same. Of like roll around, use the little sides of the train section you're on as your cover, and basically pay attention to where he's shooting. And if there's any sudden movements, you know that there's probably gonna be some bullets coming your way, so maybe go hide. And that animation, that guy there, he just did like full fucking like 360 turns as he was flying dead. That's so morbid, but I like funny death animations, I'm sorry. Even if this is just minutes after I was talking about how the fact you're shooting the actual human soldiers is a mood whiplash thing, then I see something like that and no, this is still goofy, this is still silly. I'm still not like overly concerned about the welfare of these guys that I'm just killing, and that's because when I kill them it's somewhat amusing to me. I hope the wrong people don't hear that, because I might end up, you know, in a room with a straitjacket, which, not ideal. I'm trying to get myself employed here, I don't need any more fuckery. But yeah, I do think it is kind of cool how the chasing down Burns part is broken into segments. There's the initial part to start with, then there's the train. Now we've got, I believe this is the last section of it until like the climax of this mission. But as you can see by both the crossfade and the glowing red damage marks, there's still some shit going down. And I think this might be the hardest section of it, because the train section, all things considered, was kind of a relief after the first part, where it was much more compact. But yeah, it's interesting that his health bar's still only at halfway, because like I haven't really been able to get too many hits on him, because I've been distracted by the allies of his that have been taking me on, and oh, that was kinda close there. That's another thing to bear in mind with this particular mission, is don't get ahead of yourself. You want to make sure the entire area is safe to go forward, and if that means taking longer to defeat Burns himself, then take that L. Because those guys, they can fly it, they can hide behind things, they can throw grenades, they'll shoot at you. And if you leave yourself vulnerable, then you can get a gang of them attack you, like what happened to me just then. So just be on the safe side, be a little bit cautious, and just generally don't rush things. It's very tempting to rush things when you have the boost that encourages you to go fast, and that's kind of how you've been playing most of the game, because most of the game you can be a little bit on the slapdash side if you so desire, at least on the normal difficulty. Like, I hear the God Hard difficulty is really tricky, so if you've been playing on a higher difficulty, then you've probably been conditioned to be careful a bit more than you will have on normal. But I am the normal scrub, so I just dart forward aimlessly and hope for the best. But this from, I believe this is where we do actually have to fight Burns now, because there's no real other place for him to go. And yeah, you might randomly get an arm notch take, so be careful of that. Again, this is quite climactic, I'm not gonna lie. As far as the fights they could have toward the end of the game, like, this isn't the final boss. There's more shit to do, like, that hasn't been tied up yet. If you think there's this stuff going on with Winters and stuff going on with Zaitsev, and we need to know what's going on there, so there's still another mission after this where we'll sort of conclude the game properly. But as a climactic final showdown against the guy who was our ally, this is a cool way of handling it, I think. And when I was saying in Act 4 that Act 5 still had a lot of stuff to look forward to, and how I was looking forward to covering the climax of the game, I'm hoping now it's kind of proving why. Because just the setting is cool, because it's getting more that deeper into a base aesthetic, and the general story beat of the guy who's been a bit of a dick finally reveals his true colours to us. And so from a story sense it's wrapping up, from a gameplay sense it's wrapping up because it's getting more tricky. And generally I am really satisfied with my time in Vanquish. I've done a lot of gushing over this game all the way through because there's a lot about it I like, and maybe that's because I'm not very good at properly critiquing things. Like, it's the genre of game that I'm not as familiar with as, like, say, platformers or, say, like, experience kind of gameplay situations like Abzu or something like that. But, you know, I really enjoy this game.
Reinforcements, Sam!
Wonderful. Burns! Burns! You gotta stay still.
You win, Sam. Now get out of here.
No, we leave together.
Now this is something that I do like, the way they've handled the characters here, the fact that despite them obviously having very different paths to walk, with Burns being defeated, like, there's still this mutual respect for them despite how often they clash, and the fact that they're coming from completely different ideals. But maybe that's, like, if you consider Sam with his heroic nature along with Burns being, like, the honourable guy, even if he's a complete cunt, he's still got this approach of wanting to succeed. And I kind of feel that despite the differences, there may be, like, this one link that ties them together.
My men are dead. I belong with them.
Ladies and gentlemen, join me next time for the finale of Vanquish. See you then.